In this series of videos I'm looking at some of the filters that come with the Nik Color Efex Pro 4 software. Now most people using this software think of color effects as being a collection of special effect filters, and it largely is, but there are some of these filters that can be very useful for landscape photography, and I actually use these filters almost all the time in my own work, and through these videos I want to share some of these. In the last video I looked at the use of the Pro Contrast filter and how that could correct very nasty colour casts very easily, and also help to open up the shadows as well as increase contrast in areas at the same time. In this video I'm going to show you how we can enhance a sunset through the use of one of these filters. So this is the image we're looking at. There are a few coloured clouds in the air, but not very much, and here on the water there's a little bit of pink reflected as well. The boats themselves are picking up a little bit of the colour, but not too much, and really the whole scene could do with a little bit of an improvement and warmth in these areas. So what I'm going to do is use the skylight filter. Now this filter was really intended to help remove the blue coloration that you get with UV filter. So in this instance though we're going to actually use it to enhance the colour of the sunset and the clouds and the boats. So let's add it first of all, and as I do that you can notice that we're getting quite a bit of coloration in the sky here, where the clouds are now turning purple. So if I just compare that for you, you can see the difference. It is turning the boats a very nice orangey colour though, and it's also starting to colour up some of the clouds and the water. So the trick to using this for images such as this is not to try to warm up the entire scene, but to actually selectively enhance the image through control points. So we're going to add a couple of these control points. Now as I added the first one, you'll notice that the image itself changed colour, and that's because as you add these control points, what the software does is it changes this opacity slider here from 100% to 0, and what this slider actually controls is how much of the image is getting the adjustment applied to it. So when the image is at 0, no adjustments being applied anywhere apart from where the control point is. When the opacity is at 100, it's being applied everywhere at maximum strength. So when we add the control points, the software sets this to 0 and the control point itself is set to 100%. If I select here, you can see the area that's been selected by the control point now. So areas that are white are at the maximum strength, whereas areas that are black are not selected at all. Now what we can do is we can now duplicate that control point, there we are, and we can add a little bit more colour, and we'll duplicate that one and we'll make a selection down here. All the time that I'm adding these control points, I'm also positioning them and sizing them. There we go. And now we're starting to add some selection to the boats as well, and the colours on the boats are looking very nice now, and also the sky as well. Now what we can do is we'll push that coloration up and the image is now looking a lot better. If we look to the compare button here, you can immediately see how we've transformed the image, but we're still suffering from some of the blue in the sky here turning a bit purpley. Now what we can do is we can use this negative control point here to actually remove the effect from these areas. So if I click the show masks first off, you can see that now we've made some great selections, but the image itself is starting to look a little bit grey here, or the mask is, and that's showing me that there is areas in the clouds and around the boats all being selected and affected by the adjustment, and that's not something that we want. So let's now use the minus, and the moment I add that, you can see that we're starting to remove the adjustment from these areas, and that's starting to make for a much more natural sunset type adjustment here. Now let me just add another control point, and we'll bring that down here to colour this. Now, not all the control points want to be at the same strength, so at the moment we've got quite a strong effect going on, but let's say that it's too strong in the sky. What we can do is reduce the opacity adjustment of individual control points now, so that maybe the effect isn't being applied quite as strongly as it is in other areas. So on the boats now we have a maximum strength adjustment. It is actually looking a little bit too strong there, so let's reduce that, and also there. And in the sky we've got the adjustment running to around 50–60%, and that in itself actually makes for a much more natural appealing image. So here we go, that's the original and that's the new adjustment, and if we put them side by side you can see that the new adjustment on the bottom is actually a lot nicer and a lot more appealing than the original, which now looks a little bit blue and grey. So back to the original and the adjustment. That's the skylight filter, and it's something I use very often in enhancing the sunset scenes that I shoot. I hope you found that useful.